Hey, folks, we're back and we're going to shift gears a little bit. We're talking about some AI, but we're talking about cybersecurity and impersonation of government officials using deep fakes. And the latest victim apparently is Marco Rubio, but this has been going on for a little while now. So, Chris, are we on the cusp of, I don't know, outright anarchy? I mean, who's in charge? Nobody knows.
I am shocked to find gambling going on here. This is in 1990 at General Electric in South Carolina. I was there. We put a video conference centers. We had a demo tape. It was the world's leading graphics animation, and it had like real fluid T-Rex running around with silver skin, but moving realistically. Was amazing. And sitting there in 1990, and talking to my colleague, saying at some point we're going to make it so you cannot tell the difference, can't be admissible in court. What do we do? Right. So it's not like this hasn't been a long time coming. And we're here now, like we were talking about in the break about AI. Yeah. If never, okay, but if eventually, this isn't eventually we will have these capabilities. Turns out they have now. What does that even mean? Well, it means we're going to have these sort of conversations where we say, did anybody think about how do we know who's who on the internet? We skipped that part. You don't. And to get my favorite topic, we're making all these things with AIs that have no common ethical framework and will do anything anybody feels like, prodding them into. So yeah, this is where we are.
And I personally, along this,
No, go ahead, Kate.
I think disinformation is tearing our nation apart. It is horrible what we see happening, and we don't have any real security mitigating controls at present.
And since I just acknowledged the problem, let me take a stab at the solution. I think there is solutions, and we saw this coming from miles away. There are all sorts of structures out there, including attestation systems and whatnot, that are exercised to reasonable depths. And again, all my biases have been acknowledged. Civic AI that actually has a common shared reference boundary that attests to things it does, like a human, and again, on the AI side, it's just like this. Will we never, ever get to the point where they are, quote unquote, the same as us or smart as us? And if so, what do we need to do with it? If not, then forget it. If so, then we had to, in advance, think about how do we manage that? And I think the answer is ethics, right? AIs right now will do whatever. There's no tracing. There's no tracking. Civic AIs, that are following the canon that we published, we and now others are working on out there. They will not do things because it's unethical, and they will write it down if you ask them.
Man, I would give $10K to be able to do a Mission Impossible, tear off my mask right now, and I'm someone else under here. Because here's the issue with this. Let's not make AI the whipping boy for deepfakes, right? Deepfakes have been going on since before AI. And AI makes it easier. AI makes these deepfakes better. But deepfakes, have been going on. I have a confession. When I first started getting involved in computers, the first thing I was playing with were graphics programs. And, I would love switching people's heads onto other bodies and doing stupid things. I was young and stupid. Now I'm just old, still not so smart sometimes. But, deep fakes is a long time. As you say, Chris, this is not new stuff. It's just easier to do now. Kate, to your point, it's not just deep fakes that's tearing the fat. It's the whole misinformation, fake news, conspiracy theories. Everybody goes into their own echo chambers and all that stuff. Again, let's not blame AI for that, right? AI has enough problems, right?
I agree. Yes. Go ahead, Mike.
Just to be clear, Alan was switching heads on action figures like 50 years ago, even before computers.
G.I. Joes. One guy had the beard, one guy didn't. But anyway.
Well, the Rubio thing isn't that remarkable to me. I think what's a more important one is it's been less than 2 months ago. I think it was in June when the company was ARUP, I believe, Hong Kong-based firm, where somebody got a phishing email. And that led to a conference call with the deep fake.
That was in Singapore, I believe, wasn't it?
Was it Singapore? Okay, I think it was Hong Kong, whichever. But they transferred $25 million, I think it was, and only to figure out, oops, that was not our CFO. So that's one example. You think that's the only example? That's where the real kind of, yes, it's deepfake and false information in society, and that's its own set of problems. But the money behind this and how much money will be stolen or already is being stolen because you can do this is scary.
So how will I know whether or not Dan O'Brien on this call is a deep fake? Do I have to have 2 machine services validate who he is, plus somebody who actually knows him to verify to me that that's actually Dan, or it's not going to play?
I'm going to take a page from Kate. I think where you're going with this, and I think I said this on the show. My favorite little artifact right now is 7 years ago, I told a nation of 25 million years that in people that in 7 years they would have to have an answer to this question, or their lights will turn, because people like me will tell them to turn off. Hey, why not? So this it is and it isn't. This has been a long time coming, but it's woven in with everything else. How do we verify that the person telling you to turn off the power to a major city is the person telling you and they're authorized? Answer is not well. And folks like me and people with, interesting motivations can get around those, should they choose to. Now, again, this is inevitably a question. Will it always, I tell you, among security people, I love arguing with my friends about this one. It'll never be better. It'll always be. Really? Like things never change. It's always going to be exactly this bad. No, I think it can get a lot better. I think it's always been sloppy. We've gotten away with it forever. We're being forced into ways to fix it, and we have the ways to fix it. So it's everything from a video to a social media post or whatnot. We'll get the visibility into provenance and so forth to the point that we can function.
But we have fixed similar issues with security. When you look at the whole, digital certificates, like the DigiCert business, right? And that kind of thing. And we even have post-quantum algorithms for these certificates. We've been able to solve, is that information real, with digital certificate technology. Now, that doesn't mean that someone doesn't get a phishing mail saying, hey, I got your updated wire information, and you say, oh my goodness, that's the wrong wire information. Let me correct it for you. Right? That's human error. And it's the same thing here with deep fakes. We could have certificates and digital watermarks and all of these things for our own protection. But it's still the person behind the keyboard, especially when we talk about electronic stuff. It's the human error that we need to correct. Don't blame the technology.
Defenders, tend to feel, you're looking from the wrong side. You got to think about this from the attacker perspective. It's hard to imagine it being easier to successfully pull these sort of narrative attacks now. It's unlikely that it will stay exactly as easy. In fact, I think small changes make the world of the narrative attackers much harder.
People,
and I think
process, technology.
Amen. Absolutely. I think at the end of the day that it can get better, but we are, as the article points out, woefully unprepared for this, alarmingly so.
Yeah, I mean, we really are getting to the point where we almost need a zero trust mindset when it comes to consuming any information, right? Like, it all needs to be authenticated. It all needs to be verified. I mean, I think a lot of the problem we talk about, when it comes to more of the disinformation things where Kate was talking about earlier is, the media landscape has moved from one that's been fairly highly centralized to massively distributed, right? And we've got to, get back, particularly when it comes to, government officials and the messages that they're communicating out to the public. We've got to have those trusted channels that they're flowing through, right? Like, seeing it on an X post or, seeing it on a web, a web video, that's probably not enough. We need to be able to have places we can go where, we know what we consume through that channel is going to be real and going to be verified. But
yeah, no, well enough, right? Because it's easy to get this, feel despair when you look at increasing volumes of, how am I going to process all of? And if the answer is you'll never be able to, then it's either we'll never be able to fix it or there's something else. And I think we look back, not as far back as you think, at how human culture has maintained, enough shared narrative to get through the day. It's small bits of attested information that everybody can agree on. You know, that's a rock, and we all agree that rock's been there for the last 2 weeks. And that's the sort of capability that we have today, and is beginning to happen today. Right, enough narrative reference points that most of the time we'll have the same results as we do in life, which isn't perfect, but you know, it's enough.
So, Chris, I think you just said we're all going to agree that something's an actual fact, when in reality, we can't even do that.
Yes, we can. Yeah, you'd be surprised. You really would be surprised. You know, the sky is blue on sunny days, right? You know, there's enough things we agree on. It doesn't have to be much. It's not about out shouting. You know, think about it. You know, large numbers of people going down the street. You put one little thing on the street, the entire flow of people changes around it. It's not about convincing everybody anything.
Dan?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think we deal with deep fakes the way we deal with fakes of everything else, right? I mean, look at the $100 bill now. How do we make sure that the 100 that we, have in our wallet is real, right? You can mark it with the little pen. You've got the hologram. You've got all these things, right? I think we're just going to need to approach digital assets the same way we approach fakes with physical assets, whether it be a $100 bill, a concert ticket, a high-end luxury item like a high-end watch, or piece of clothing or furniture. We're going to need to find ways to validate that things are what they say they are.
Glad you said that, because it comes down to something physical, right? Something you have. You recognize this, Chris, right? Something you know, something you have. When it comes to a person, anything can be faked, right? I can fake your Social Security. Once I have your Social Security number, going to go do bad things with it. I can fake you with your voice or with your image. But today we rely on, I think increasingly, it's got to be something physically that we have. If I'm sitting on a conference call and I have a device that I'm holding that is my device and verified that it's mine, and electronically and can verify that that device is present during my conversation with you, or it's watermarked in my digital image or whatever it might be. The physical part of this, to your point, Dan, the dollar bill, whether it's the strips we're inserting into it or the holographs, there is a physical component to security to be able to validate human identity and who we are.
So are we going to have to do two-factor every time I do a Zoom with you, Mitch?
No. I'll disagree with you, Mitch, on this one, because the difference is not something you have, it's something you are. And that doesn't mean biometrics. And, it's like, and we're pushing time here, but yeah, that's something you are, you can't be taken away from you. And you're, where you are, your semantic environment, right? Yeah.
So let me wrap this up for us. My con law teacher in law school 100 years ago taught us something, and it's proven true. Society runs 3 to 5 years behind technology, right? And this AI deepfake stuff, and by the way, I'll point out on the ticker, Taylor, it's Secretary Rubio, not Senator. He's the Secretary of State. It's going to take us 3 to 5 years to catch up with what the bad guys are able to do right now with AI. And not just bad guys, with whatever's going on with AI. Society has a lot of inertia built in. It doesn't slalom, a ski course. It takes big obtuse turns. And so we could rail on here all we want, but it's going to take but in 5 years, we will come up with, whether it's biometrics or something, or to Chris's, your point, we'll come up with something. We'll mitigate it. It's just going to take time. This stuff is happening so quick, right? Maybe someone will come up with a vibe to fix deep fakes. I don't know. Anyway, gang, what a great discussion today. We live in interesting times, that's for sure. Thank you for watching. We hope you've enjoyed today's Techstrong. Gang, as usual, we have a full Techstrong TV lineup immediately following, so stay tuned for that. Of course, you can always check this out on techstrong.tv, on the Techstrong TV OTT app, or our Techstrong TV YouTube channel. By the way, we now have the individual segments broken out on the YouTube channel, so you don't have to watch all 3 segments. If there's a particular segment you like, go check it out on YouTube. Until tomorrow, though, everyone, this is Alan Schimmel. We're out of here. Thank you.